The odor of stale coffee emanating from her parents' brasserie settled around the globes of the old gas lamps, causing any patrons foolish enough to venture into the galerie to flee with their taste buds unsullied. Once out on the street, she continued on to the Musée du Louvre, where she would study and work, unshackled from her sisters. The journey made her feel both the lightness of relief and the heaviness of loss, as all the hugs and kisses and tiny affections were now Angelique's. Éliane hoped her sister treasured those affections the way she ought to. At the Aile de Flore, the wing of the Louvre that stretched along the river, Éliane ran straight up to the École du Louvre. She took her seat in the lecture theatre, looking over the rows of students for her brother Luc. But while Luc's soul was devoted to art, his body worshipped at the cafés of Montparnasse, and he was absent again. Monsieur Bellamy began to speak about Italian Renaissance painters, and Éliane concentrated on long-haired and voluptuous women, on cherubs with all of their body parts intact, and on a chiaroscuro of religious chastisements. At lunchtime, she left the building, never able to attend afternoon classes as her family needed the money she made from her work. Before she entered the museum proper and sat in her seat at the front desk, ready to direct patrons to the Venus de Milo and the Mona Lisa, she went to see Monsieur Jaujard, the director of the Musées Nationaux. He had allowed her to continue at the École despite the fact that she could neither pay for her tuition nor spend a full day there. "Monsieur," she asked politely, "do you know where I can sell my paintbrushes?" She pulled the items out of her bag, refusing to look at the last scraps of her childish dream of being a painter. "They're good quality, sable, and might suit a new student, perhaps?" Monsieur Jaujard studied her treasures, kindly avoiding looking at her face, which she knew was reddened with both the shame of asking for another favor and from the loss. "Leave them with me. I know a young man who might give you a good price." "Thank you," she said, voice low, making herself give over the items by thinking of Yolande's face tomorrow when she had croissant for breakfast instead of stale bread. Soon before the Louvre closed, Monsieur Jaujard appeared with an envelope, which he handed to Éliane. "For you." She opened it and discovered at least twice what she had hoped to get. Now it was Monsieur's cheeks that flushed, as she thanked him profusely, then left the museum, knowing she needed to spend the money that afternoon or it would be poured down the necks of her father and his friends at the brasserie. Outside, the streets were quiet, the pall of Hitler's unknown ambitions casting a shadow over Paris. Éliane slipped into La Samaritaine and found 2 cheap but adequate soutien-gorge for Jacqueline, who had needed a bra for several months, but even if their mother had noticed her daughter's maturity in the fog of her tiredness from working 18 hours a day at the brasserie, there had been no money to do anything about it. Once Éliane had paid for the undergarments, there was enough left to buy croissants, too. She was smiling as she walked home, knowing her bags held both goods and happiness for her sisters, until someone carrying 2 gas masks stepped onto the sidewalk in front of her. She looked away. But on the other side of the street was another Parisian laden with similarly disquieting objects. Hitler could not really be coming for France. He had taken enough of Europe already. Still, she stopped walking and stared at her shopping bags. A bra would soothe Jacqueline's growing embarrassment over her rapidly curving body. A gas mask might save her life. "Éliane!" An arm slung itself around her shoulders, and then, beside her on the path, was her brother Luc. 1 year older and as blonde as she, he was grinning in a way that always made her smile. "Do you remember my friend Xavier?" Luc began, lighting a cigarette and speaking around it, his arm still draped over her shoulders, so she had to hold her own hand up to shield the flame from the wind. "He was at school with me for a couple of years before his family took him back to England." Éliane vaguely recalled a dark-haired boy, French-born but who'd mostly lived in England, being underfoot in the apartment several afternoons each week after school, many years before. He'd been